I'm Harvey Deutschendorf. I just had a wonderful, wonderful a podcast session with Kim Sorrell. Wonderful, great questions, great thought-provoking questions, which I really, really, really had a great time. It was very, very powerful, very worthwhile, and I believe the audience got so much out of it. I know I got a lot out of this session, and I really would recommend, if you have the opportunity to be a guest on Kim's podcast, to do so. It was just a fantastic, wonderful experience, and I just can't say enough about it. That it's just fantastic. So thank you again.
Welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here. You're going to be so glad you're here. I am Kim Sorrell. I am a keynote speaker. I'm an author. I get to do a lot of fun things in life. My favorite by far is to meet people, meet interesting people. And today I have a guest who is no exception to that. Harvey Deutschendorf. Hopefully I said that right, Harvey.
You did
is my guest. And we met a little while ago, and he has a great story that he's going to share with us. And then he's going to talk about emotional intelligence. And don't let your eyes glaze over and think, oh gosh, that's a term that I've heard, I already know, or whatever it is, because Harvey's approach to it is completely different and very palatable and understandable. And it is very interesting, intriguing, and something you're going to want to hear. So Harvey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be on.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited that you're here. So first of all, Harvey, I would love people to get to know you. And I know a couple of things about you. I know you like to hike. I know you like dogs. You like jazz music. There's a few things I know, but I would like to know about 8-year-old Harvey.
Well, yes. 8-year-old Harvey was actually a happy child, but he was growing up in very extreme poverty. I don't know, but he didn't know that even at 8 years old. Because most people around him were poor too. But we were exceptionally poor. My parents were refugees. They came to Canada after the Second World War, had lost everything during the war because they were escaping from the Red Army, who took over their little country. And most of the family resettled in Europe, except my father. My father wanted to start his own business, and so he didn't see the opportunity there in Europe, so he decided to come to Canada. They had to borrow money for passage from their church, and they had absolutely nothing. Just they escaped with what they could carry. And my brother was born in Europe before they came over here. He was 2 years old when they had bought passage to Canada. And they came here in the first 12 years of my life. We were in very dire poverty. When my brother and I would become ill years later, my mother would mention that she'd blame herself. She said there were times that she only had an orange to feed both of us in days. So I don't remember any of that. I don't remember being hungry or anything. I don't remember being really destitute or anything. She always managed to feed us and dress us well for school and things like that. But it was very poverty. The other thing that we faced besides poverty was my father was very angry. He could be very, very abusive. We always lived in fear of his anger. After 12, we moved, and he bought, the business expanded, and then we lived a little bit better. We had a little more money and things like that, and he became even angrier and angrier, and then he took it out on everybody in the family, and my brother especially. And because my brother couldn't stand up to him, he started taking it out on me. I was fortunate though. My mother we were very close. We had a very good relationship, and very grateful that I had a mother who was very supportive. And I remember it was being in high school. High school was an escape for me. I was always a dreamer. I wanted to experience the big world out there. I had big dreams. I wanted to experience everything do everything. And apart from the little world that I'd grown up in, it was very isolated. I remember we didn't have any extended family or anything, just a few distant relatives. So there was no familiar support, and we became very isolated, which sort of leads to a lot of times if you see there's abuse in the family, you'll see isolation present. It wasn't our family, and yeah, things were really bad in high school. And I remember one day, high school was my escape. We had books, we had sports, had friends. The high school principal said to me in front of the class, said, "Harvey, you've got a good head on your shoulders. Please don't let it go to your head." And I said, "Wow." This was the most educated sort of worldly person that I knew. I didn't know a lot of educated worldly people. My parents were poorly educated, and a lot of the people in the area were as well. And he was an exception. So here's a man I really looked up to and respect, and it was wow. He gave me a life raft, and I remember that the whole time. The problem was that as I grew up, I went into the world. I managed to go to university. I got a degree, and I was working as a professional, and things should have been great. I went way beyond what anybody expected of me, and I think it would have been fantastic, but there weren't, because there was something wrong, and I couldn't quite pinpoint it because I believed I was smart enough. I got good marks in school, and I couldn't figure it out. I was reading self-help books and stuff, and trying to self-diagnose myself. One day, I heard about this book called by Daniel Goleman, called Emotional Intelligence: Why Can Matter More Than IQ, and it sounded very interesting. So I bought a copy, and page 4, something jumped out at me. It was my aha moment. It said, "Your intellect can come to naught when your emotions hold sway." And this was it. My intellect was okay, but my emotions were way out of whack. I grew up where anxiety. I was always anxious. Always had to live in fear and anxiety, and very suspicious of people. Somebody's going to take advantage of you, things like that. I grew up with that sort of those feelings. So
Yeah.
I thought I needed to change that. So I went on. I joined a men's organization that it's called the Mankind Project, a wonderful organization that helps men that actually share their feelings with one another, supports them. They set up a safe container for men to do that, and a lot of men need this because they've got nowhere to go. A lot of men don't have a single close friend that they can share all their fears and all their joys with, and this is a wonderful. Anyways, I started doing my own work. I read everything I could on emotional intelligence. I took training, and then one day I said, well, this is powerful. This is really powerful. This is changing my life. It can change people's lives. So I said,
So Harvey, let me
Yeah.
just unpack. You've just said so much. You've covered a whole lot of years in just a couple minutes. And so I'd like to go back a little bit.
Sure.
So your parents were in a horrible situation.
Yes.
And I can't even imagine being in the situation that they were in and living in that fear and oppression and wondering what to do. And it took some guts to come to the United States and try to pave a better way. But it sounds like the attempt didn't prove itself out for a while. Like living in poverty, it's funny, isn't it? That when we're kids, we don't know what it is we don't have. We just think this is life, and so an orange for dinner, it's an orange for dinner, right? And so you don't know what you don't have. And kudos to your mom for it sounds like she was a great mom.
She was a great mom, and despite her the hardships she went through, she sacrificed so much for us, and was supportive. She couldn't do much. She didn't have any kind of authority on her own. She was stuck in no familiar support. She missed her family in Europe terribly and everything, and she didn't really want to leave, but she basically felt she had no choice. But yeah, so she was the anchor that sort of kept it together for me. So, till I could figure things out myself and start working on myself. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And strong. She sounds
Strong,
very
yes.
strong.
Very strong woman.
especially
Yes.
living with a man who has anger issues.
Yes.
That is not an easy thing.
No.
And then not wanting your kids to reflect that. So is that something that you fought against, didn't want to be, or is it something you've had to deal with in your own life, like making sure
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you don't
Well,
have the same?
I carried anger because I was angry, of course, at the abuse and sort of that area of that anger carries over, into other areas as well. When you're feeling angry, sometimes you take it out on sort of there's collateral damage on people around you, that have nothing to do with it. Like, for example, my brother took it out on me because he didn't have the strength and the courage to stand up to my father. If he had, he could have broken sort of the power that my father had, because my father depended on him to do so many things. But he didn't realize that. It didn't sort of. So I was collateral damage. He took it out on me, and that happens a lot with anger, unless we're aware of it and we're able to manage it. We're able to deal with it. And we're able to do some work on it to release it. And yeah, it's well, for me, it's basically now very much very much in the background. It can still come up if I'm really triggered hard and things like that situations, but I've managed to really really manage to really manage it very 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 well. So, and I don't get angry as much. I can let things pass over me. I can just let things go. But it's work. It doesn't just happen. So
Right.
you have to work on it. You have to continue to work on it, and this is why it's so important to get help with it. Like my men's group is been a great help for me, and yeah. So I mean, life has become really joyful. I mean, I love
Yeah.
life. I'm happy, and I've lost a lot of the sort of um, anxiety and fear, and I just look forward to every day, and you can turn things around.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
turn things
I
around.
love your attitude.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta say.
Anybody.
And you're not the norm.
No.
You're special in that you've overcome some things that typically take more than one generation to overcome.
Yeah.
So here your parents weren't educated yet. You went to university.
Yeah.
So first one in the family to go to university, that's already a tough thing. But
Hmm.
coming from the background that you came from and their background that they came from, it's even more special, I believe, that you were able to do that, because I imagine that's something that you really had to do on your own. You had to figure
Yes.
out how you were going to get there, how you were going to
Yeah.
make it work, right?
Mhm.
And kudos to your principal. It was your principal, right, that told
Yes.
you, that
Yes.
encouraged you.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And I'd love for you to talk about this a bit and how it
Sure.
carries over into adulthood. Because when things are said to us that boost us up like
Hmm.
that, man, that
Yeah.
that is life changing, right? That is
Yes.
so. But then there are the things that are the exact opposite of that,
Yes.
that take us down, that we
Hmm.
also carry.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to just speak about that, because what a great thing for that man to say to you. That's so
Yes.
awesome.
Yes. Yeah, the only one in my family who said things to bring me up was my mother, of course. She always thought I was, smart and I was capable and things like that. And she would tell me, but the males, my father certainly didn't, and my brother certainly didn't. He felt threatened by any of my achievements. It was a threat to him, and because I had girlfriends, I had brought friends home, and he didn't have any of those, and so everything I did was a threat. He seemed to be jealous of it, but anyways, yes, the what the my principal said to me was something I always looked back upon. It helped me through difficult times. I said, yes, I can do this. I'm capable. I'm smart. And like I say, it was like a life raft. And there's a backstory to this, actually, very, very interesting story. That years later, uh, 40 years later, I was in a men's group, and I was talking. about this story. I was telling them about my high school principal. One of the men says, "He's my neighbor."
Oh,
I didn't even know if he was. I didn't even know if he was still alive. Like we always think of our teachers in school and stuff as being so much older than us.
mhm.
But in actuality, most of them aren't. It could be only, and so, he was still alive, and he was elderly at the time, and I didn't even know if he'd remember me. And so it took me a long time to work up the courage to give him a call because I'd mentioned him in The Other Kind of Smart, my first book. And the story, that's the only sort of personal story that I shared at the time. And so I phoned, and he did remember me. It was like 4 years later, he did remember me. I was kind of was expecting, Harvey, who? But he did remember me, and so I asked him if he wanted to get together for coffee, and sure enough, we met for coffee, and we had a great conversation. He was still very involved and very bright and vibrant man. And yeah, it was very emotional actually. And I give him a signed copy of my book, and I showed him the place where I mentioned him, and it was very emotional because it was very important for me to do this because he made a difference in my life, a big difference, and it's important for me to let him know that because he was elderly, and so it was important that he knew that he made such a difference to me, and that he could, spend the rest of his life knowing that he did this. So I'm very grateful that I did work up the courage to give him a call, meet with him, and let him know this.
Wow, that is so cool. That
Yeah,
had to be such a special moment. And I don't think people do that a lot. And what an important, wonderful thing to do. Like if
yeah.
somebody's had some big positive effect on your life, to be able to express that is incredible. My dad helped a lot of people out over the years, and there was a kid I went to high school with. He was a couple years older than me, and didn't have family support. And my dad helped him out. My dad helped him get a car, helped him get into college,
Mhm.
and just helped him like a dad would help his own
Yes,
son, right?
that's
And years
wonderful.
later, he wrote my dad a letter, and he sent a check for every penny my dad had given him.
Hmm.
And he wrote my dad a letter just telling him what it meant to him that
Yeah.
somebody would care about him,
Oh,
and that
wow.
somebody would tell him that he's capable and then help him get to where he was because he's
Yeah.
very successful. And my dad wept when he got the
Yes.
letter
Yeah.
because what a what what a thing. I mean, my dad had obviously forgotten about the money, and he did end up calling him and saying, "I don't want your money, I'm just going to rip up your check. Thank you for the effort, but it
Yeah.
was my pleasure, whatever kind of thing." But man, that meant so much to my dad.
Yes. Yeah. I think at the end of my life, like Brendan Bouchard says, the three questions he's going to have at the end of his life is, did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? So that answers, at least one of the questions, or two of the questions, basically all three, that your dad did matter to somebody, mattered a lot. And like my high school principal mattered to me. He
Mhm.
changed my life, and is important to know because for especially for teachers, most of us, we sort of interact with, maybe a dozen people or so in our lives, really. But teachers can, have thousands of people that they can influence, thousands of students. And it's
Mhm.
important to let these people know if they've had an impact on your life, if they made a difference. I think reach out and find them and let them know. It matters so much to them that they know. It matters a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you're encouraging people to do that because, yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
And you'll
So,
both feel so much better. It'll
mm,
mean so much to both of you. So you'll both get to, feel very good after that's done.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So praise God for this man saying this thing. I'm curious though, did he remember that he said that to you?
Um, he no, he wouldn't have remembered that. I mean, he saw thousands of students, he became sort of the superintendent of schools, at the end of it. He was promoted, and but he remembered me, and he remembered that time in school, and he knew somehow he that things weren't going good, for me at home. He was aware of that somehow. I don't know how he knew that because, my father, he kept it very, very quiet. A lot of times when abuse happens, it's kept quiet under wraps. It doesn't happen in public. It doesn't happen in front of, other people because, at some level, people that are doing this know it's wrong, so they try to keep it hidden. But he knew this. He said he didn't know exactly how he would remember, but he knew things weren't going well at home. Somehow he knew. So
Mm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So again, I'm so impressed with you because you had all this abuse. You had, whatever education that you had, and to be able to overcome all of that and not be the man that your dad is amazing. So good for you, Harvey. So I want to hear more about this men's group.
Okay, it's called the the Mankind Project, and it's basically it's just a short history. It started in the U.S. and in the mid '90s, and it spread to Canada, and it's now in a lot of countries: South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, France, Germany, England, Ireland, probably a few other countries I don't even know about at this point. But it's an organization that allows men a chance to connect at a deeper level that men normally connect with in our world. Women connect at this level all the time, sort of at an emotional level where they're free to share, support one another. But men aren't able to do this, and that has very, very negative consequences because men have no place to go to turn to get support from other men. They don't know how to share their feelings, emotions. We provide a safe place, environment for men to do that, and so. It's I just can't say enough wonderful things about it. It's helped me so much, and it's helped other men. And when you've gone there, like me, and you've received so much help and so much support, you go there and you help other men, which basically I go there. Well, I still get support there, but I help other men too that are struggling with their issues and they have nowhere to really go, nowhere to turn, where they'll be heard and they'll be accepted and be supported. So this is a great organization. It's so greatly needed in our society, and so we can meet. We have a weekend that goes on there that we can't share the details of what happens, but men get they get initiated into organization. Then they can come to our groups that regular that go on, or they don't. Some men don't come back to groups. Some men become very involved. So it's very, very open to whatever level men want to get involved in, and
that is wonderful. The name of the organization again is
it's a Mankind Project,
Mankind
MKP.
Project.
Yeah. You Google it, and every large center probably in the U.S. and has would have a chapter there. So you can Google it, and they have groups. Yeah, and you can
right.
attend.
And you're so right. Like I read recently that the average man in the United States has 0.7 friends.
Yeah. Yes, it's very sad, and you get it's easy to see what the effects of that would be. Their men are isolated, they have no support, and you get abuse, drug and alcohol abuse. You get all kinds of domestic, issues coming up. All kinds of things happen for men when there's no basically support system there for them that they can turn to. And so we've it just does wonderful things, and I wish just more men would become involved in this. So spreading the word.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. Yes, because I wonder what the number was pre-COVID, because 0.7, but like I think about my husband, and he had work friends and he had old friends, but he never did anything with friends. Like
Yeah.
he would have been happy just being with me,
Yeah.
24/7, like never had to have another
Yeah.
connection. He was happy with
Yeah.
that. But I had lots of friends.
Yes.
And so I go do things with friends and whatever.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
just didn't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's very
Men
interesting.
don't, my experience is most men don't reach out. So I found that I've reached out. I have to reach out to men because they're not used to reaching out, calling up a man, said let's go for coffee, let's do something and stuff like that. Because men have trouble doing that, and so I have to take the initiative. They're usually glad when I'm calling. I have some friends, and they're happy to hear from me, and love to go for coffee, do something. But I'm the one that has to, most of the time, I have to initiate, and they won't pick up, like men really struggle with that, and that's one thing we're really working on giving men, to reach out to other men because they need it. They're not used to reaching out. They're not used to. Men have trouble. Most men have trouble asking for help. And unlike women, I think most women will ask for help when they need it. Men have trouble asking for help. They have trouble reaching out. And so, yeah, most women I know have support systems. They have friends that they can reach out to. A lot of men don't, and they sort of suffer in isolation. And
So is it an ego thing? Is that why they don't reach
well,
out?
it's yeah, but it's also, I think, the way men have been raised. So, to be strong, independent. Not ask for help. It's part of the way men have been raised. I think I see it changing somewhat. I see it changing because the big thing that's changed with men that I see from men of my generation, men are more involved now in child rearing. I see
Mhm.
that. That's a great change. That's a very positive change. They're involved in child rearing. They're more involved. Probably a lot of women when they give, they're more involved in sort of helping, around the house, sharing, domestic duties and things like that. I see that. Not all men, and it depends on sort of, I guess, a lot to how they were raised. If they're raised more traditionally, or if they're raised more, progressive in a progressive family situation where men take on more responsibilities, or for the house and for the involved in the relationship itself. Because when I was raised, there's a definite just a delineation of duties. The man
Mhm.
worked on outside the house, and she did the cooking. There was never any crossing over into each other's areas. It was like strictly,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's interesting, right?
roles. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that those roles exist still today
Yes.
with so many women working and doing whatever. And even if you're staying at home, it is a lot of work
Yes.
to stay at home and take care of the kids and take care of the house. And
Yeah.
yeah, it shouldn't be his work and her work. It should be they work together
Their
and
work. Their
yeah,
work. It's
their
all.
work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I
Yeah.
can see that. I can see depending on how you raise your kids, what they're going
Yeah.
to end up doing. And
That's right. What they see going on at home is what they're going to think is the norm. What they
mhm.
believe that their role is going to be. And unless you take a really you want to make changes like this, unless you want your life to be different, unless you take steps to do new things, it means basically what we offer, man, is the chance to get out of their comfort zone and try new things, try new roles on in life, and grow and expand their world, grow, get out of their comfort zone. I've spent my life pushing the boundaries of my comfort zone. So, I've done that my whole life, but it's very difficult, I think, for most men. Well, it's difficult for most people to get stuck inside their comfort zones, and they really don't grow and reach their potential. They're living their fears instead of living their dreams, or living living, their passion, what they could do. And I've always pushed myself to live my dreams, to live my passions. And it means pushing your way through fear and all the things that will prevent you from doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And it also makes you want to be a lifelong learner, right?
yes,
Like,
exactly.
and be changing and growing and whatever, that you don't have to stay stuck in one spot,
No.
but that you can change and grow. And I would think too, Harvey, that the men that are involved in the Mankind Project, men that are going to the groups, that it helps their other relationships in their life, the
Yeah.
relationships at home, the
Yeah.
relationships at work, right? Do
Yes.
you find that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're more open. They're vulnerable. They share more with their partners, with their colleagues at work, and I think it improves all their relationships. It improves relationships at home very much. That's the first the big benefit that I see of that, and then it improves their relationship with other people at work. They become better listeners. They become supportive. In our group, what we try to do is this is one thing that men rather do. Women can listen without offering advice, without trying to fix somebody. That's usually a problem for men. Men always figure they have to fix something or give advice. The first rule in our group is we don't give advice. We listen and we talk about how the other person's work impacts us, but we don't give advice unless somebody specifically asks us for advice. We don't offer it. We just listen and support them. Yeah, and men
Yeah, that's
struggle
so
with that. They
interesting.
just listening, becoming a good listener, and really paying attention and offering support. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so interesting. I kind of learned that lesson a few years ago. I read a book called Codependent No More. It's an old book, but definitely worth a read for anybody who wants to read it. It's so today and good and powerful. And one of the things it talks about in there is unsolicited advice.
Hmm.
And that can be so easy to give because,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think women too, like I was the queen of unsolicited advice. Like if somebody comes to me and talks to me about something, man, I'm ready to tell them,
Hmm.
well, shoot, if you just do this or you just do that, until I read that book and realized people don't want my advice.
No,
You know,
no.
they don't care. Sometimes people just need to vent. They just need to talk things out. They just
Hmm.
need someone to listen, to care.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they're not looking for you to fix anything. They just
No.
want to talk about it. And so I can tell you, I still struggle in that area with my daughter.
Mm.
When she comes to me with things, I just assume, of course, she wants my sage advice as her mother. But
Hmm.
we talked about it the other day, and she's like, "Yeah, no, if you could stop giving me advice, that'd be really good." And so, yeah. So if somebody asks for it, even then, I
Yes.
have found that you have to be careful
Yes.
with the advice that you give,
Hmm.
even when somebody asks. Do you
Yeah.
find the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say, what do you think you should do? And then we'll look at what they're telling me. I'd say, what do you think? What would happen if you did that? Let them talk through what they think they should do.
Mm.
We have actually we have a saying. Oh, we don't. In the group, sometimes somebody will say, "Well, I don't know," and we have a saying, "Well, if you did know, what would it be?" Because they a lot of times do know. They have some idea of what the answer is, but they're not sure, and they don't want to, you know, come across as that it's not a very good solution. But just ask them, if you knew, what would it be? Or if you knew the answer, what would it be?
Mm.
And it's interesting what comes out, and it's usually a pretty good solution that they come up with themselves. And it's very important that somebody comes up with the solution to their struggles themselves, because
Mm.
that
Yeah.
empowers them. That empowers them. If it comes from you, that's not empowering the person. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. Well,
Yeah.
and also, quite often there's more than one way to solve
Yes.
an issue.
All
And
the,
so your way for somebody else is probably not the way they should be solving it.
no.
So for them to come up with their own, I love that. That's great advice. And that makes so much sense. It's such a great approach.
Yes.
I love that. So
Yeah.
then you got excited about and passionate about emotional intelligence
Yes.
and started consuming everything you could and
Yes.
learning all about it. And so what, tell me some key things that you've come up with, and where
Well,
you're at.
I started writing and stuff like that, and some of the key things I came up with that are very, very important, I guess, when developing emotional intelligence is the first thing is to develop relationships. We have to is to become a listener, to be able to active listener, and that's difficult because there's a lot of we're told this course is on public speaking and everything. We're never told how to really listen in school. We're never taught that. Yet it's as important, if not more important, than being able to speak well, is to be able to listen, because that's how we make connections with others, to hear
Mhm.
them. And what I found out, I actually was at this, my partner and I, she and I were at a couples conference, and then we heard about this exercise to become a better listener. Is just let the other person speak for 3 minutes, okay? And usually when somebody else is speaking, we're thinking of an answer. We're not really listening to what they're saying. We're thinking of our response. Okay, so
Mhm.
to overcome that, set this up. The other person talks for 3 minutes, and your job is going to be just to listen to what they're saying and then feed back to them what they're saying. And then you take turns. The other person can speak, and make it a fun game. See how much of it you can pick up and feed back to what they said. Because you really have to concentrate, because you're not thinking of a response. Your only job is to listen to what they said. So you practice doing this. And remember that when somebody's speaking, and try to remember things about the person. There's nothing more powerful than you remember things that you said. Like I remembered, for example, that your husband, you love to go to this place on vacation, whatever, and the fun things you did. And then I bring that up. Well, did you go to the vacation? Next time I see you, okay,
Mm.
you'll know that I was listening to you. You will know that what you said, I took it in, and it make you feel like you're somebody that's I feel is important.
Yeah, oh my gosh. And that is
Yeah,
so important. It's important. People want to feel heard
yeah,
and seen and
heard.
and valuable, right?
Yes,
And it's interesting. The way you're describing it is exactly the way, pretty much, that I describe. I lived a year figuring out the true meaning of love, and I used this 2,000-year-old poem from First Corinthians: "Love is patient, love is kind, does not envy,
yeah,
does not boast, etc." And love is patient is exactly what you're describing, in that you're totally engaged 100% here,
mhm,
recognizing this is the most important moment of your life. The
yeah,
past is in the past, the future is yet to
yes,
come. So your
yes,
mind needs to be completely here. You
yes,
need to be completely here to
yes,
hear what the other person has to say. And I stunk at that. I was terrible because I would be thinking about an answer for them, or I'd be thinking, what advice I
mhm,
could throw their way, or relating it to a personal story in my head, or who has got soccer practice later, and then when I did practice this, and it took practice, but when I did practice this and come to a point where I am fully engaged and here, it changes everything. You hear things you never would have heard, like you're
right,
saying, if you're running through scenarios in your head, if you're letting your mind go anywhere but
yes,
listening to who's in front of you, you are going to miss it. And you're not going to say to them the next time you see them, "Hey, do
yes,
you enjoy your vacation?" Or
yes,
whatever.
yes, yes.
So yeah, that's so good. That is so
And
good. I love that.
we when somebody hears us, when somebody remembers things about us, we form a special connection bond with that person, because most people don't do that, actually. Most people just want to talk about themselves, you know, I find this, and there's very few people that really listen and remember things about you. And when they do, you want to be around that person. And, I mean, when you think about it, that has, really, really big implications because, first of all, if you're if you're working with this person, you want to work with this person, you want to maybe start a business with this person because you feel a special connection, a special bond with them. You want to maybe date this person, you want to marry this person, or if you're an organization, this is the person you want to promote. You feel like you want to promote because they hear you, they understand you, you connect with them. So these are the kind of bonds, these are the types of connections that really, really have very, very long-lasting and positive consequences in your life when you're able to form this connection with people far beyond, just feeling good. These are the people you remember, and you want to see them, doing well, you want to help them, you want to do things for them, you want to be with them, around them. So this is a very, very powerful skill to develop, is to be able to listen and to connect with other people. And it takes work. It doesn't come naturally. It takes work and effort, but you can become very good at this, and you can see in your life how things will change, and your life will become really experience a lot more joy and happiness, and when those things start to happen, you start forming connections with the people you want to. You don't necessarily want to connect with everyone, but there's people in your life that you'd like to form strong relationships with, and this is how we do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody's going to be your best friend, right?
No.
Not everybody's going to be someone that, has interests in common or whatever it happens to be. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, but human connection is so, so important. And, COVID, of course, did not help human connection. And the screens that we put in front of us do not help human connection. You go out for dinner and you see people, the whole table, the whole family is on a screen and not talking, or a couple or whoever. And man, I'm seeing more and more, though, people putting the screens away. And that's what you need to do, is connect person to person. There is nothing better. AI cannot not be that. That's one thing AI cannot take away or replicate, is that human connection that we all need. I want to ask you a question, because here we're talking about emotional intelligence, and we're talking about relationship and whatever. And some people might not have heard of emotional intelligence before, or really wonder what it is. How would you define emotional intelligence?
Well, the emotional intelligence is our ability to recognize, differentiate, and manage our emotions and the emotions of others around us. So, I'm not 100% with that total definition. I know we can manage our own emotions. We can manage them well. We don't have as much power to manage, others' emotions, but definitely we can influence others' emotions. I mean, just try this simple thing. Next time you go to buy your groceries, just look, gloomy, look miserable, and notice how people look back at you. Look at them, and next time you go in there, the biggest smile you can bring out. Just look and smile at people. Notice how they react to you. Emotions are contagious. Okay, so it's hard for people, even if they're sort of normally miserable, to, when they see you smiling, excuse me, when they see you smiling, not to smile back. This one thing to say: if you're not feeling good, smile. It automatically makes you feel better. So you do have a lot of control. You do have a lot of ability to manage your emotions, and that's the whole trick, to make our emotions our friends rather than our enemies, because they can be both. They can be our best friend. They can be our worst enemy. Make our emotions work for us instead of working against us. Learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want you to talk more about how to do that, because I always think we let people take control of our emotions way
Yes.
too
Yeah.
often. You know, I know I have in my lifetime. If I'm around somebody who's gloomy or
Yeah.
angry, it's
Yeah.
easy to get angry or
Sure.
gloomy,
Yeah.
right? And we're giving them the power
Yeah.
over our emotions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we don't have to be angry just because they're angry,
No,
right? Or
no, we don't.
gloomy just because
We
they're
don't.
gloomy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The best, you know, here's the thing. No, actually, I did a TEDx talk on that. It's called on road rage. It's a 5-minute TEDx talk, and it talks about how road rage happens. And because what happens is when something happens out there, it first reaches our amygdala. It reaches our emotional brain, which is our amygdala. It's a little almond-shaped thing. It's on our sort of our primitive brain when we had to sort of you know, when we were living in caves, we had to react very quickly. You know, if there was a danger, it was either fight or flight. We still have that part of our brain with us, and that's our sort of emotional brain. And the trick is when information comes in, it first hits that brain. So we feel before we think. So the most important thing, if you forget everything said today, we feel before we think. It takes about 6 seconds for that information to reach our powerful neocortex, our powerful thinking brain, executive brain. So in that time, that's a critical time. So if we're feeling a strong emotion, don't don't react. Don't do anything. Give it time for it to reach our thinking brain. We're going to make a much more thoughtful, we're going to respond from our thoughts rather than just reacting from our emotions. That's the first thing. And we don't have to react because we're feeling a powerful emotion. You know, when something pops into our mind, it doesn't have to come out of our mouth. We can give it time to evaporate. If a situation is really disturbing to us at the time, instead of just reacting to it, we can get away from it. Give ourselves time, because it's usually in that time where we're vulnerable to say something or do something that we're going to regret later. So get away from it. Give ourselves time to think about it. Okay, to be able to use our intellect to make a much better decision. So it's time, breathing. When we think about it, we think about, you know, we can see things from a different perspective sometimes. And we can only see these things from when we react one perspective, one very narrow perspective. When we start thinking, we come up with all kinds of other alternatives, possibilities. So give ourselves time. Do not react when you're feeling strongly about something in the moment. So
Yeah. So like with road rage,
yes,
right?
right with road rage is the best example of that because you know, I mean, people react and you know, there's been deaths, there's been, you know, injuries, property damage for people not just reacting before they're able, you know, to think about it, because if they thought about it, they would never do that. And you know, like, yeah, and you know, you all hear it all the time. You say, well, what did they do? They're a smart person, you know, why did they do that? Well, because what were they thinking? Well, they weren't thinking. That it hadn't reached their brain yet. Actually, it was still in their emotional brain. They hadn't really thought this through because they weren't thinking. So we're all. It's called Daniel Goleman calls this the has a name for it, the amygdala hijack. It can hijack us. It can, you know, make everybody do something that they're going to regret later if they let it. You know, we have to break that cycle. We have to give ourselves time to think things through. Yeah.
Yeah, my gosh, that's such great advice. You know, I think about like in a relationship and a couple in particular, right? And that when so often, like with my husband, you know, we would start over something so stupid. It was always, you know, any fight, it always later on you look at it and go, "Guy, why did we fight about that?" But
Yeah.
anyway, but it would start out just kind of whatever. Hey, why did you do that? And but it would escalate to,
Yes.
and by the way, last Tuesday you, and
Right.
last
Yeah.
month, and
Yeah.
3 years ago,
Yeah.
and whatever. And you are saying things you regret, and you're
Yes.
saying things that don't make sense.
Yes, and it's an attack, and when you're being attacked, all you can do is to defend. I mean, there's not going to be any understanding or being able to take it to another level where you can, and so the thing to do is instead of attacking, say, well, not even you made me feel this way. When you do this, this is how I feel. This is the impact it's having on me. Okay, so it's not that I'm attacking. I'm just letting you know how I'm taking this in. This is the impact it's having on me. Okay, so then we can talk about it. How we could do this differently. We can have a conversation about if we don't feel personally attacked, because when you're getting into arguments, when the attacks start coming up, it just spirals, it escalates, and nothing is ever resolved.
Right.
Nothing ever comes, because if we can get into this is how it makes me feel. Okay, well, I really, when I said this, I didn't really, that wasn't the intent to make you feel this way. Okay, so how could I say it differently? I should be more aware of this, next time how you feel, like it leads to greater understanding. It can lead to creating more understanding in the relationship, more respect, more consideration for one another. When I know these things, that how it makes you feel. But when you're attacking, there's no possibility of that happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding. Well, and things make us feel a certain way sometimes, or a lot of times, based on our history.
Yes.
It brings up something from childhood. It brings
Yes.
up something from some time in life
Yeah.
where you're like, when those words were said
Yeah.
that way, it,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
bad,
We
right?
exactly what, and what what we do in our men's group is when somebody does some work on something, how they felt and stuff. We go right back to when's the first time you felt this way. And a lot of
Mhm.
times it does go back to childhood, and we react to something when actually it has nothing to do with the other person in the moment. It's a trigger to something that goes way back, and it could go all the way back into childhood. Okay, so and the person is triggering that in us, and just to be aware of that, what our triggers are, and recognizing that I'm being triggered here, and giving ourselves time to, yeah, that's why it's triggering me, and I do this when I'm giving talks, when I'm speaking all the time. I say to the audience, I say, we're triggered all the time. It's constant. People are triggering us. I'm triggering you right now. If you're having any emotions about me, it's triggering something in your past, because you've never met me before. You don't know me, but it's triggering something. I remind you of somebody. It could be bad. It could be a good memory. This is good, or it could be a bad memory about something. Okay, so just be aware of that. It's not even about me. You don't
Huh.
know me, but it's about something from your past that is being triggered because of the way I look, the way I speak, my emotions. It could be anything about me that's triggering. Yeah,
Wow, that is so powerful.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because it's so true. Like first impressions, right? They talk about first impressions, and quite
Mhm.
often first impressions are not the impression that you end up getting from
Right.
somebody.
That's
And
right.
so people worry about first impressions, but those things I would imagine are what you're talking about, right? Um, or
Yeah.
first impressions would go along with what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
That when you see somebody, you think a certain way
Yeah.
because of they remind you of somebody or
Yes.
whatever it happens to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's constant. It happens all the time without us even being aware of it. Just, yeah, it's going on constantly.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've given some great advice on listening and truly listening without forming your own opinion or without being distracted in any way,
Mm-hmm.
but really listening. That's gigantic. And not letting other people's emotions affect your emotions, stopping, breathing for a minute
Yeah.
before you react, before you say anything, and think about what you're about to do or what you're about to say
Yes.
instead of just reacting,
Mhm.
right? That
Mhm.
is such great advice. And then realizing too that you're reacting a certain way, probably most likely based on something from your past,
Mhm.
not because of what is actually happening right here, right now.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, holy cow. That's amazing. That's amazing. So if you were to say to people listening, besides buy my book, because that's what they should do, but what would you say, like for somebody maybe who is not in good relationship with somebody that they want to be in a good relationship with,
Mhm.
their spouse, one of their kids, whatever. How does emotional intelligence come into healing something?
Just listen and don't just listen to what they're saying and with try to not make the judgments, try to you're making probably all kinds of judgments about them and just listen, really listen and uh, let them know that you're listening. Remember, you ask them questions about what they're saying. Well, tell me more about that. Open-ended questions. Tell me more about that. How does that make you feel? What do you think? Just spend the time to listen without any distractions, without any other interference in the background. Don't look at your phone. Don't look away. Really pay attention to them. Focus on them. Just listen to them, and say, yeah, yeah. Just try to understand them a little bit about them, and uh, take it from there. Take it from there
Yeah.
because they may just feel they've never been heard, and it's very very important to all of us to feel heard. Now, it's not important, like we may not agree with them, probably don't, but the important thing is that they feel heard,
Mm.
that somebody's really heard them. That we all need to feel heard. It's a basic human need. So if somebody actually hears us, whether they agree with us or not, that's going to make a huge difference. And yeah, so they may want to really hear, in turn, hear us, what we have to say without,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That
So
is such great advice. That
yeah,
is so good
yeah,
because that is the reality. We do want to be heard.
yes,
And too often we're stifled and
yes,
not heard
yeah,
be- because somebody's racing with their own thoughts instead
yeah,
of
yeah,
listening, really
yeah,
listening,
yeah,
or also because people are busy in a hurry and don't want to
yeah,
stop and
yeah,
listen,
yeah.
right?
Sure. And it's important that we heard, like I mean, in a lot of cases, in most cases, what we're angry or upset about is not something that we can fix. We can fix in a hurry, whatever. It's something that just we have to deal with. But it's very, very important that we feel heard about it. It'll feel better once we're heard. We know in a lot of cases, things are going on. It's not a simple solution. It's not a quick fix, and we can't expect anybody will fix it for us. But we need to know that somebody's going to really listen and hear us. That's the first important step.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think from a young age, we're not heard,
No, we're
right?
not.
Like
We're not.
parents are busy or, you
Yeah,
you have something that you got to get off your chest, you want to
yeah,
say,
yeah,
but they really don't want to hear. And so
yeah,
you're not able to
yeah,
talk it out. And then it goes on, right? Like as an
yeah,
adult with your
yeah,
supervisor at work, or your spouse or friends or
yeah.
whatever it happens to be. So we got to learn how to be on both ends of that,
That's
both
right.
the listening end, the great listening end, and be able to I don't know, kind of advocate for ourselves so that we can be heard.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we feel it's such a release of stress, and so we feel so good when we are hurt, and it's sort of like a huge pressure release for us, and then as we slowly talk and somebody's hearing us, our the emotions will go down, and we'll will start to see things from another perspective and stuff, and the conversation will change. You know, when somebody hears us sometimes, it leads to more understanding and deeper connections with others when we're actually heard, and it may not lead to greater agreement, but it'll lead to respecting one another and being able to respect one another and get along, even though we don't agree.
Yeah, because it's okay to not agree.
It's okay.
It's really
fine.
okay.
Yeah.
People can have whatever opinion they have. That's
right.
perfectly
As long
fine.
as
And
we respect each other,
right.
regardless of differences, that's what matters. That's what really
So
matters.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, everything you've had to say is so valuable and so applicable for everyone. The advice that you've given and the things that we can try on our own, right? The grocery store, go and be grumpy. The next day, go and smile and see what it's like, because it's a big difference. Because how you show up often is how people then show up for you. Exactly. So you know, you want happy, walk in happy. Like I prefer happy, right? Over grumpy and sad. So if you want happy, go ahead and be, you know, you be happy. And like you said, really early on, it's contagious. Our emotions can be contagious. Okay. So Harvey, this has been so great. And unfortunately, we're out of time, because I know that you've got even more to say and more wisdom to drop on us. How can people find you, get a hold of you? What would you like people to do?
Well, my website, it's theotherkindofsmart.com. The other kind of smart, one word. It's the otherkindofsmart.com. You can get a hold of me there. I'm even my personal email is Harvey EI guy. I'm the emotional intelligence guy at shaw.ca. Either way, you can even send me an email or just go to the website. There's a free quiz that I have on the website. It's fun. It only takes about 5 minutes, and it's self-scoring, so they get a score right away. And I don't see your score unless you want to tell me. I have no idea what your score is. So it's available in like 120 languages. So, you know, if English isn't your strongest language, you can do it in 119 other languages.
Yeah. Well, and I encourage you to do that, to go on Harvey's website. I did that. I took the quiz. All right. And I'm happy to share my score if you want. You can you guess people's scores sometimes?
I have a pretty good idea. The interesting thing is, Kim, that I hear from people, I never hear from, like, it's out of 4. I hear from people that have 4 out of 4, 3 out of 4. I never hear from people that have less than 3. Never. Nobody ever tells me I got 1 out of 4 or 2, 3 out of 4. There's people, I guess they're embarrassed or whatever. Don't want to.
Oh, interesting.
But the beautiful thing about emotional intelligence, here's the beautiful thing, is regardless of where you're at, you can increase it. It's not like our IQ where it's basically set at 18. That's the power of it. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter what we grew up with. If our parents were highly emotional intelligent, probably we would be too. But even if they aren't, doesn't matter what we went through. We can increase our emotional intelligence. I'm living proof of that. Mine wasn't great when I started, believe me, but I knew I needed to develop it, and I have. So that's the beauty of it. You can develop it at any age. That's just your measure at this point in time. Okay, you can increase it.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you've said today. Thank you for what you're doing in the world, how many people you're helping. I appreciate you so much, Harvey. And I know everybody who's watching does too. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And until I see you again, just go and love somebody.